Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the call. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen in. Tonight, what I'd like to explore with you is my perspectives on the difference between spiritual practice and healing practice. Also, we're going to look at the source or the root of our pain and what the alchemical process of healing that pain looks like. And, of course, I want to introduce you to Parallel Realities Practice, the tool by which that healing can occur. Years ago, when I went into spiritual practice, I thought that spiritual practice and healing practice were the same. But what I've seen over the years is that healing practice includes spiritual practice. It's an absolute component of healing to have a spiritual practice. Spiritual practice, sometimes described as cultivating a higher state of awareness or the experience of the ultimate reality, a connection to the source. Healing practice includes that, but it focuses on the only thing that's etched in stone that will ultimately allow our healing to occur, and that is complete and unconditional self-acceptance. So I discovered this because I was a Zen student for years, and my Zen student was focused on and attached to the belief that enlightenment was the way to my healing. And for sure, spiritual practice, meditation practices, prayer practices undoubtedly helped me to touch that place of peace within me. And it absolutely had a healing effect in my life. And for a while, it was my answer. However, after years of dedicated and invaluable Zen practice, I noticed, actually because of the higher states of awareness that I was cultivating through meditation, that the wounded parts of me, the troubled parts of me, the aspects that I went into spiritual practice to heal were still there. I was still troubled by my depression. I was still troubled by my anger, by my shame. Fear and jealousy were constant visitors. Not to mention that in the midst of me passionately seeking to realize the truth, I was still afraid and unable to speak my simple truths. I was still afraid not to say yes when my truth was no. There was a part of me that felt like if I wasn't pleasing all the time, that people wouldn't like me. It was a pattern that I grew up with. Now, seeing that I was not getting what I thought spiritual practice was going to bring to me, it triggered a very old and well-worn program. And that's a program of self-criticism. So I started, or part of me started to criticize me for not attaining my goal, I guess you could say. And that inner dialogue actually affected one of my most unwanted parts, one of the parts that I did want to heal. And that's the part of me that's been with me since I was a kid. And that part of me was the one who believed it was not good enough. And it felt not good enough. Now, that belief was being self-confirmed by the fact that those troubles, the ones that I wanted to get rid of, were clearly there. This then translated into, Coley, you're failing at spiritual practice. Now, I assumed if I wasn't getting what I wanted out of Zen practice, it must mean that I wasn't working hard enough at the practice that was going to bring me peace. I became disappointed in myself, and I became worried and concerned about this. I was sure that spiritual practice was the answer that would heal heal me. And what I was seeing is that wasn't happening. So at that time, as a person who put all my eggs in the spiritual practice basket, I believed that the answer was to meditate more. But I was wrong. I've since come to realize and understand what was happening more clearly. And the way I see it now is that in the stillness of meditation, the aspects of me that needed to be healed were being allowed to come to the surface because there was that space. In meditation practice, there were parts of me that started, or feelings in me that started to come to the surface. And they were coming to the surface so I could see them more clearly, so that I could pay attention to them, not to push them away, not to judge them or deny them, not certainly to be bypassed or avoided through spiritual practice. I was resisting them, not allowing myself to feel those troubled parts of me, not wanting to be present with them. So in the midst of the spiritual practice that I wanted to bring peace to my life, I was waging war on certain parts of me, certain aspects of me. They turned into my inner enemies, and they terrorized me, and I was fighting against them. I realized what I was seeing in myself was exactly what's been going on in the world for thousands of years, since we've been on the planet. I was practicing war in the name of peace. Now, pure spirit does not get damaged, but our souls do. Enlightenment experiences do not simply dissolve the beliefs and the lifetime of conditioned behaviors that the personality or the ego, same thing, has about itself. Nor do enlightenment experiences erase childhood wounds. There is more to healing than enlightenment. For years, I unconsciously used spiritual practice as a kind of management tool. I was using it to manage my pain rather than to heal it. For a while, meditation alone did help me get away from the inner and outer conflicts in my life. That definitely made me feel better, and yes, that had a healing effect on me, but it didn't heal the root cause of my suffering. What I was doing was feeding my spiritual body through spiritual practice and meditation practice, and I was really focused on that. That's where pretty much all my attention was. But I was not addressing the wounds in my emotional body. I was using meditation in a similar way that I would use an anti-anxiety medication. So medication can help me feel less anxious, but the pills don't address or remove the cause of the anxiety. They manage it. They can dull the intensity of it. And this is how I came to see that spiritual practice and healing practice, although they were related, they were not the same. Because the things that were still in me, that I wanted spiritual practice to remove from me, I had put in a considerable amount of time. And those things were still there. And as it has always been, And in my opinion, now more than ever, individually and collectively, we are in need of healing. And as it has always been, the energy that does that healing is already within us. For thousands of years, that energy has been called the light. That light is the light of consciousness. It is the ultimate healing energy. It's source energy medicine. And it is the very same light every healer who has walked on this earth has used. And it's without a shadow of a doubt within each one of us. The light of consciousness, that healing energy, what was once called the light of the world by one of the world's most powerful healers, is within us all already. The Christ mind in you, or the Buddha mind in you, or the awakened mind in you, is the light of consciousness in you. And when those powerful healers walked on this earth, they cultivated and developed through practice that light of consciousness within themselves and used it to heal their ills and also to help heal their brothers and sisters. So the aim of Parallel Realities practice is to awaken and strengthen that light within you and help you to learn how to bring that light to the parts of you that are living in the shadows or need to be healed. And how that light, by extending it to yourself, from yourself, starts to be an energy that comes from you. It's an energy that is coming from you not because you're trying to get it, but because you're practicing being that light unto yourself. It's the light of consciousness that allows me to speak these words, and it allows you to hear them. It's the creation and the gift bestowed upon us by the source of all creation, the divine energy, God, if that's a word you choose to use. Or in Aramaic, the word father was Abwoon, A-B-W-O-O-N, Abwoon. And Abwoon translates to the father, mother, creator of the cosmos. Our sense of separation from that source has caused generations of human beings throughout our existence much pain, suffering, and disease. This is what I call the original ouch, that place of disconnection. And in Aramaic, again, to use the language that was used over 2,000 years ago, the word for sin means to be cut off from. To be cut off from. So the so-called original sin, which I was, as a person who grew up in a Catholic family, that was a fundamental belief. It was not even questioned. I had this darkness in me, this original sin in me, which I was trying to wash away. I now understand that this sense of being cut off from or disconnected from, this separation from that light, from that source, that original pain, that this ease of disconnection and separation is rising up from our souls or our spiritual body. And this affects our emotional body, it affects our mental body, and eventually that dis-ease occurring in the subtle energy bodies eventually manifests in the physical form. As human beings, we consist of 4 energy bodies: the spiritual body or soul, the emotional body, the mental body, and the physical body. In order for our complete healing to occur, we must bring attention and care to all 4 of these bodies. Eventually, we must address what I'm referring to as this original ouch, which resides in the very core of our being. The soul's sense of separation from its creative source is at the root of our dis-ease. This perspective that I want to share with you is coming from a book called Sunshine Before the Dawn by Judy Satori. And she talks about souls, and she talks about this disconnection or this separation. This is what she says. A newly created soul is a spark of the divine. They have life, but they have not yet gained wisdom. Each human being can only strengthen their soul and develop wisdom through experience in physical life and physical form. They must first separate from the oneness that is the divine creator, so they learn to reconnect. The greater the disconnection and life experiences of the soul, the greater the strengthening of that soul, and the more a soul will, in time, gain the wisdom to truly be of service to the One. So, we as souls are here in each lifetime, in each embodiment, to use our life experiences gain wisdom, to learn how, through that wisdom, to reconnect to the One, to the source that created us. And just as the sunbeam is inseparable from the sun that created it, we as souls, as that spark of the divine, are inseparable from our womb, the Father, Mother, Creator of the cosmos. Now, before our souls get embodied, they are living in the spiritual realm, in that world, in the spiritual reality. They are connected to the divine love, the unconditional love that created them. They are not seeking or longing for love because they are not separated from it. However, when our souls become enfleshed, they leave that spiritual reality, their spiritual home, and then the soul enters into a parallel reality, the material reality of the third dimensional world and the third dimensional consciousness, the world of separation, the world of physical form and physical existence. Upon embodiment, our souls experience this separation from the divine energy that created them. That separation from divine love that leaves its mark in the soul body leaves within us a kind of, I sense it and describe it as a divine homesickness, the longing for love. Not the love of the world, unconditional love, the love of creation. This disconnection and sense of separation that I feel in my soul body then moves up into my emotional body, and it causes me feelings of emptiness, loneliness, disconnection. Those feelings I've certainly experienced in my life. I'm sure many of you have, and it's what drives us. It's what causes us to want more. There's more to life than just the world of things. It leaves us with a longing to belong. So the love and the connection that we are seeking from parents, and we've been born into this consciousness. It's not the blame of anyone. This is about consciousness and unconsciousness. Unconscious behaviors, which is the shadow or the darkness, and conscious behaviors, or bringing consciousness to those unconscious programs. That's what we're looking at. It's not so much about bad people. It's about consciousness and unconsciousness. So, the love and the connection that we're seeking from parents or mates or friends or pets or belongings, we're trying to solve that longing on a soul level in our emotional body, or on an emotional level. Now, the sense of disconnection, or this sense of separation, ultimately affects the health and well-being of our mental body, and the thoughts that we have about ourselves eventually affects our physical body, and is a huge factor in creating physical ailments. Patricia Cota Robles writes, "Learning to love yourself is the key to improving your life. Not doing more, not obtaining more, learning to love yourself is the key to improving your life. At any given moment, our life and our experiences reflect how we think and feel about ourselves. This is true of our relationships, our health, our job, and every other aspect of our life. From the time we were born, we came to the conclusion of who we are by how the people in our lives treated us, what they said to us, or sometimes what they didn't say to us, and the things that happened to us on a daily basis. In the consciousness of separation and duality that we were born into, the beliefs about ourselves were most commonly based in fear and negative input, which we received from the people around us, the people we lived with, and the people we went to school with, and society and religion. All of those thoughts impacted us, programmed us, and for a lot of us, we are still operating out of those programs that were placed into us, that negative input that was being placed into us by others. Consequently, it's quite normal for our lives to reflect dysfunctional relationships, poor health, unhappiness, and every other life experience that made us miserable and lonely. The challenge, however, is that no matter how clearly we understand this truth on an intellectual level, or you could say in our mental body, unless we learn to love and honor ourselves and transmute the self-loathing that has caused all of our problems, we will not change our life. So, let's take a minute to look a little deeper into what causes the creation and continuation of the consciousness of separation and duality, or what keeps us in the third dimensional consciousness that we've been born into as souls, lifetime after lifetime. And we've also been born into the beliefs, and those beliefs have accumulated. And the beliefs that have accumulated are most commonly based in fear and the negative input we received from the people around us that impacted and created the life experience that made us, our souls, and our personalities, what I call Koli, to be miserable and lonely. What was the energy, which a kind of food, it's a kind of energy that was being fed to us, that negative energy. And it's been feeding us on an emotional level and a mental level. And this energy that came from the people around us left behind a deposit of negative energy or negativity within us that caused us, or caused parts of us, to feel loathed, caused parts of us to feel not esteemed. When we get fed this food, it creates a certain way that we develop, a certain way that we start to feel whether or not we are lovable or maybe not lovable. Now, as this energy accumulates with us day after day, week after week, year after year, it creates a place within us where this toxic energy gets stored. It's like an emotional toxic waste dump, a place where we put the parts of us that have been wounded in childhood by the negative input that we received. These are the parts or the aspects of ourselves that live in our emotional body that are in need of healing. And until we develop an aspect of our consciousness that is willing to love and honor those selves and transmute that self-loathing or that low self-esteem that has caused all our problems, we're not going to change. So the challenge is really about, can we develop an aspect of ourselves, not the personality. This is not for the personality to do. This is for another aspect of consciousness to be developed that chooses to love and honor the different parts or different aspects or different feelings that are in the personality. Now, back to what causes the creation and continuation of the consciousness of separation and duality. And I like to use the story of Adam and Eve as a perspective, to use a certain perspective from that story to take a look at this original separation, what caused the original separation, or this, what was called, or what many of us have heard as the original sin. And as I mentioned before, original sin in Aramaic has to do with being cut off from. So keep that in mind as I talk about this story of Adam and Eve, who are spoken of as the children of God, and they represent our eternal souls. The children of God are the souls. We are brothers and sisters because we're created by that same source that we are a spark of that divine energy. So, as the children of God, those that hold that divine light and are representative, again, of our eternal souls, we can use this story of Adam and Eve as an illustration that, for me, clearly depicts how the energy of judgment, which is for sure negative input that we've received, is what separated Adam and Eve, the children of God, from their Creator's love. It took away their innocence, it shamed them, and it banished them or disconnected them from the Garden of Eden, which represents a state of consciousness, a place of inner peace. This is not just Adam and Eve's story, but our story as well. We just need to probe into our own life experience and just take a minute to ask yourself, am I afraid of being judged? How does judgment make me feel? When I get judged, what does it cause me to feel? How has it hurt me? Has judgment taken away your innocence, just like Adam and Eve's innocence was taken away? Has it taken away childlike qualities like spontaneity? Has judgment caused me to feel shamed and abandoned? Has judgment caused me to feel disconnected and separate? Now, in our childhood, those parts of us or the things about us that were judged by others, and perhaps we're still judging about ourselves, caused wounds or a sense of brokenness in our emotional body. These are the aspects of us that were not accepted in our childhood environment for one reason or another. It wasn't our fault. And these are exactly the parts in us that still need to be healed. And this is the big secret. The only thing that's etched in stone in order for our healing to occur is complete and unconditional self-acceptance of those very parts, the parts that we need to learn to love so we could change our lives. Our lives are going to be changed by how we relate to ourselves. Are we loving to ourselves? To understand that the love that we're looking for, we need to choose to extend to ourselves, because the nature of love is to give of itself. Love is not seeking for itself or wanting for itself. Love knows its love through the giving of itself. And that, my friends, it takes a conscious choice. a self-healing practice that brings inner peace into outer expression. It was created to heal those wounded parts of us, and it is the outcome of over 40 years of spiritual practice and personal growth work. It teaches one how to finally make peace with all the aspects of your personality. This peace practice of complete and unconditional self-acceptance eventually allows the soul, our spiritual body, the freedom to manifest its purpose through our physical form, to manifest the purpose for its being here on earth as your unique spiritual expression. It is the marriage of two self-awareness practices. One is a tool for self-study called voice dialogue. It was created to expand one's consciousness. Its purpose is to cultivate an aspect of one's consciousness and empowered presence that can make conscious choices. The other leg the practice stands on is stillness meditation. This is the spiritual component of parallel realities practice, and it allows people to nourish and strengthen the relationship to their spiritual nature and their connection to the divine source of creation, the oneness that our souls separated from. I see this place of stillness as a womb, as the womb of creation. And we have the potential to create a life of peace from that place of peace within us. Not knowing how near the truth is, we seek it far away. That was a quote from an ancient Zen teacher. Not knowing how near the truth is, we seek it far away. The truth that you're seeking, the peace that you're seeking, the divine energy that you're seeking, the happiness and joy that you're seeking are going to be found within you. Seek first that place within you, not outside of you. The most significant difference between parallel realities practice and other practices, whether they are called healing practices or spiritual practices, is the use of voice dialogue. And voice dialogue, that method was created over 40 years ago by two Jungian therapists, Hal and Sidra Stone. If you want more information about voice dialogue, just Google Hal and Sidra Stone, and it'll take you to their website. Voice dialogue is not a spiritual practice, although it includes spirituality. It is a consciousness practice, and it specifically develops an aspect of your consciousness that makes conscious choices. I also have come to call it the I am presence. Through the voice dialogue perspective, this is how voice dialogue looks at the development or the ego structure that I call Koli. The way voice dialogue looks at what I call Koli is that Koli is made up of a constellation of different selves or different voices or different sub-personalities. So I have a part of me that's independent. I have a part of me that's controlling. I have a part of me that's protective. I have a part of me that's independent. I have a part that's sad. I have a part that's happy. On and on. And I'm sure that everybody on the call recognize similar parts in yourself also. Now, if we use a musical metaphor to look at those different cells or different parts, we could see them as instruments in our inner orchestra. There are saxophones and trombones and violins and trumpets and, again, on and on. What the voice dialogue process does is to awaken and strengthen an aspect of your consciousness that functions as the conductor of your inner orchestra. The conductor has a relationship with all of the many instruments or all of the different cells or voices within us, but it is not identified with any of them. The conductor is there to harmonize. The conductor is there to bring peace to the orchestra. Because sometimes the different instruments, those inner voices, argue or they disagree with one another. And these opposing voices are what creates the feelings of disharmony, inner conflict, and disconnection within us. We have an internal dialogue between these different instruments, and a lot of times they are in conflict. One wants to stay, one wants to go. One wants to say yes, one wants to say no. The conductor is not one of the instruments. It is not one of the cells. It is the voice and the energy for the light of consciousness. And, as I mentioned earlier, it is the light of consciousness that does the healing. So, the alchemy of self-healing is about developing that light of consciousness within you and then choosing to bring that simple I am presence to the parts in the orchestra that have been wounded or have been hurt. These wounded cells carry a low energetic vibration, like lead. And this is where the analogy to alchemy comes into play. Alchemy is essentially a process of transmutation, the transmutation of lead or base metals into gold. The alchemist uses the base element lead and transmutes that lower energy or that lower vibration into gold. The alchemists do not try to get rid of the lead. The alchemist uses what's there, the lead. That lower vibration is seen as an invaluable element in the process of alchemy. The lead is needed for its transmutation into gold, into a higher vibration. It's needed. If the lead wasn't there, the gold would not come into manifestation. In the same way, we need to understand that the lower energies in us, that lead, those wounded parts, are there to be used for transmutation, not to be gotten rid of or denied. In our analogy, the conductor, that I am presence, the energy for the light of consciousness, acts as the alchemist. And it has what is referred to in alchemy as the philosopher's stone, which is that magic elixir, that ingredient that transforms the lead into gold. In the alchemy of self-healing, the conductor chooses to bring its simple presence to the lead in us, to those wounded, injured parts, allows them to be there. It just is present with them. And then it embraces them and then chooses to extend unconditional love and self-acceptance to those feelings, to those parts. It does not try to do away with them. Parallel realities practice is not about trying to get rid of those cells in you. It's about learning how to bring healing to them, transmuting them, raising them to a higher vibration, using what has been perceived as having little value into the richness of our lives. The other leg of the practice is the spiritual practice of stillness meditation. By being still, a power is generated within us. That power is of that divine energy, is of that oneness. Our ability to be still brings forth that power into manifestation. The conductor begins to cultivate a relationship to that place of peace, the place it can always return to, that is already within you, and that place is the place of stillness. The word tabernacle translates to the portable dwelling place for the divine presence. Our bodies are that portable dwelling place, and within that tabernacle of the body already resides that divine presence. Within the tabernacle is a place called the Holy of Holies. That's the place where that divine presence is already residing. For us to go to that place is for us to commune with and to be confirmed by the divine presence that is already dwelling within you. And that place is the place of stillness. It is invaluable for the conductor to improve and nurture a relationship with that place of peace, because it is up to the conductor to heal the wounded parts. And again, the only thing that's etched in stone for our healing to occur is complete and unconditional self-acceptance. The instruments, the parts of our personality, simply don't do that. They have been conditioned and programmed to stay away from that pain. As human beings, it's our basic survival instinct to move away from our discomfort, the feelings that make us feel vulnerable. The conscious choice maker, that light of consciousness, that savior energy, chooses to embrace the aspects of ourselves that have been rejected or denied. It practices complete and unconditional self-acceptance, which is what allows for the healing of those parts to occur. Parallel realities practice is not just about experiencing the basis of reality, which is what spiritual practice aims towards, but it also goes deeply into the basis of the wounds that were suffered in childhood that are at the root of our personal suffering and heals them. This is why many people went into spiritual practice in the first place. I know I certainly did. I went into spiritual practice to be healed. To reduce the suffering is phrase that I learned through Buddhism to reduce the suffering in the world. And I needed to reduce the suffering in my inner world. And I went into spiritual practice to reduce the suffering that came from those childhood wounds. Spiritual practice can and does reduce the suffering from those wounds, but does it completely heal them? I became aware that in the name of peace, I was at war with certain parts of me. I was practicing war in the name of peace, and that simply doesn't work. The realization of that was very liberating for me. It was an enlightened perspective, or it was an enlightening experience for me. And although spiritual practice helped me cultivate a relationship to stillness, a relationship with meditation, which was very helpful, it was invaluable. Still was not quite the same as cultivating a relationship with my eternal soul, nor did it address my emotional wounds. If what was presented on this call today resonated with you and you would like to experience parallel realities practice firsthand, please visit my website to schedule a complimentary consultation. And complimentary consultations we could do via Skype or phone or in person if you live in the Denver area. Thank you very much for allowing me to share this time with you and for your attention. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. Be blessed by the divine love that encompasses you.